In this episode, we dive back into the dark recesses of my memories and talk about the toys I wish I had as a kid. So, stick around. Hey everyone, it's me, Rob. Welcome to Days of Dorker Past. In this episode, we're going to talk about the toys that I wish I had as a kid. Now, for one reason or another, I never got these toys. Either they were right in front of me and they slipped between my fingers, or they're just something I circled in the wish book and Santa never brought them. Either way, these are things that I wish I had as a kid and I still wish I had today. Number one comes from 1978, and that is Rom the Space Knight. Created by Parker Brothers, Rom the Space Knight was the cutting edge of toy technology at the time. Now, it always confused me because I remember seeing the Rom comic book by Marvel and I thought that spawned the toy. But it was actually the other way around. Parker Brothers wanted to market Rom, so they went to Marvel to produce a comic. I bet you're asking yourself, what made Rom the cutting edge of technology? Well, Parker Brothers created a very sophisticated programming, if you will, for the time. Rom came with different sound effects and light effects, and with different wires that you attached, you could put different items in his hands which would react with different lights. His famous weird looking, squarish looking laser gun could be put in his hand and it would light up as he was shooting. Now, this was an item that I saw a few kids that were older than me have when I was growing up. But the time that it slipped between my fingers was when I saw it at the Goodwill. I actually think it was probably missing some parts, and maybe that's why my parents didn't want to get it for me, but it still was Rom. It still was the big, shiny silver Space Knight, and I wanted it. I was familiar with the comics, I knew who he was, and I just had to have it. So, yeah. Today, he goes for a pretty penny, but maybe one day I'll stumble across him again. Number two on the list comes from one of my favorite childhood movies, and that's Commando. Yes, the perfect movie to have a child watch. Yes, the perfect movie for a 9-year-old me to watch and obsess about. Arnold Schwarzenegger was everywhere and he was awesome. Commando is just a plain awesome movie. You have the vengeful one-man army that's dispatching people in the most grotesque and gruesome and fun ways imaginable. So, what better way? Make toys. Make toys for kids. Yeah, it just fit. Anyway, they had two different versions. You had kind of the G.I. Joe sized version, which were okay. They were kind of just molded. They weren't really that posable. They reminded me a lot of the Sergeant Rock action figures made by Remco. They were just kind of there, put gun in their hand. But he had a large array of villains to fight, which weren't in the movie, but that's still pretty cool. But what I really wanted was the large figure. He came with cloth pants and a rubber flak jacket. He also came with his awesome, large, rectangular, boxed, quad-firing missile launcher that he used in the movie. He came with other weapons that I don't really remember off the top of my head, but I remember seeing him at the Kitty City, and I wanted him so bad. But at that time, I was a little too obsessed with the movie, and my parents didn't like that, even though they're the ones that let me watch it. But anyway, they didn't let me get it because they knew how nasty the movie was, and they didn't want me playing with that army toy, but other army toys were okay. Yeah, whatever. I didn't get it, I still want it. Awesomeness. Commando, it's an awesome movie anyway. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Number 3 on the list, the E.T. board game. What made this board game so awesome? Well, let me stop right there. I don't know how the game played. I never got to play it. Anyway, what made this board game so awesome was that you could have E.T.'s spaceship. You put that in the center, and the whole point is to get around the board and get on it and go home. That's kind of the plot of the movie, so you can play that in board game form. But E.T. spacecraft aside, there was a little E.T. figure that came with it. That's awesome. Now let's double down on the awesome. He came with a sheet to go over him so you can recreate the Halloween scenes. Dude and dudettes, how awesome is that? That is the only reason I wanted that game, and that's the only reason my parents didn't get it for me. They weren't going to pay $8 or whatever for a board game when all I wanted was the little figure with the plastic sleeve that would go over him. But, I can't even fathom how awesome that would be to own. Number 4 on the list may shock and amaze you. I never had any Mad Balls. I wanted them so bad, but by the time they came out, I guess I was a little bit too old for my parents to just start throwing money away on something new to collect. I was still collecting some Transformers and G.I. Joes then, so I guess they thought that was all I needed. I mean, for the most part, they're right, but I needed Mad Balls. I wanted Mad Balls. The kid down the street that I knew had like all of them, and they were awesome. But he was younger. He would take them outside, throw them around, hit them with a baseball bat until they disintegrated. That's insult to injury. When you want something so bad and somebody's beating it with a baseball bat in front of you. Number 5 on the list is the Star Wars AT-ST. Now as a kid, I always wanted an AT-AT, and I knew I was never going to get one. It was way too big and way too expensive. And just way too awesome for my parents to get it for me. Anyway, we're talking about the AT-ST that made its appearance in Return of the Jedi on the forest moon of Endor. Awesomeness. Chewbacca got to pilot one with his Ewok buddies. You got to see Ewoks take them out with 2 trees smashing into it. But there was just something so different about it. I mean, an AT-AT was cool to see on Hoth. But the AT-ST with its weird chicken-like walking pattern, it just spoke to me as a kid. I wanted it. And the toy was cool because it had this little thing on the back that you would squeeze and the feet would move. Sorry. It was just a neat toy, and I always wanted one. Yet again, something that I would circle in every wish book those few years, and I never got. Anyway, this has just been a few of the toys that I wish I had as a kid. Now, I'm an adult now. I can look back at my childhood and said, it was okay. I got the things that I did, I enjoyed them, and my parents didn't have the money to spoil me or for me to become a spoiled brat, which is good. But I can look back at it with whimsy and wish I had these things. And one day when I have a couple extra bucks kicking around, maybe I can get them to put in my collection now. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you liked what you saw, give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them and I love getting back to you all. If you're new around here, hit the subscribe and hit that little bell thing if you want to be notified whenever there's a new episode. And until next time, keep being rad and stay dorky.